everybody, welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office breakdown for this past weekend, which saw The Exorcist Believer come out and open up to a pretty decent $45 million worldwide opening based off of a $30 million budget. Not looking too bad for that film, despite the fact that the studio paid around $400 million in order to get the rights to the film to have a trilogy of these movies. And so it's going to be interesting to see exactly how we are going to find the comparisons between, one, how the film is doing compared to its budget, and two, how it's actually doing towards how much the studio put into the actual franchise in order to get it and in order to put this trilogy forward. It's going to be very interesting to see these numbers as they continue to come in. We also, of course, are going to be talking about Paw Patrol, as this film is also doing quite well here stateside, and also a bunch of other updates to films like The Creator and so on and so forth. Before we get further, please make sure to smash that like button. A lot of the fire button, I see, smash the rumble button as well. Also make sure that you're subscribed to the channel with the bell notification. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So it has been quite a while at this point since I have been on the channel, so thank you all very much for your patience and your understanding. As you all know, my baby girl was born just a couple of weeks ago, almost 3 weeks ago. Kind of insane to think about in that capacity. But so far, Baby Sif is doing very, very well. Baby Thor is adapting quite well also. And the Lady Freya is also doing well, though she definitely could use a little bit more sleep, as all of us could, her a lot more than I. But anyway, just want to give that a little bit of an update there. And I'll give a further update on streaming schedule, things like that, at the end of the video, because I'm sure some people just want to talk about the box office. And so as you can see over at Deadline, we got Nance, good old Nance, talking about how The Exorcist is scaring up a $45 million worldwide opening, whereas Paw Patrol is nearing $100 million. And it says Warner Brothers has cost $2 billion for 2023. A lot of that, of course, has to do with, as you can see in this picture here, the Barbie movie. It goes on to say, just as it came in lower than it hoped for domestically, the Universal Blumhouse The Exorcist Believer did not fully convert overseas audiences, summoning a $17.9 million for a debut of $45.1 million. The R-rated David Gordon Green directed reboot sequel did see some of its 52 launch markets give it a number one start, while in like-for-likes, The Bow is above Megan, Evil Dead Rise, Scream 6, and Smile. As regards to the latter, recall that it legged out with terrific holds. Anthony has done a deep dive into the details behind Universal's purchase of the Exorcist franchise and how it is opening stacks up against that. And that's going to be, again, a very, a pretty big question mark, right? Is just exactly where is this film going to ultimately stand as far as how much they actually put forth into it, how much Universal actually spent on the franchise. And even though, again, we could say it's doing well versus a budget, versus the $400 million that they put in to just get 3 movies, that obviously is not looking to be showing up nearly as strongly and not doing nearly as well as what they had probably hoped it to be. Speaking of Tony, got to talk about Tony. Been a while since we've talked about Tony here on the channel. It says, Devil is in the details, making sense of the Exorcist Believer's $27 million opening after Universal and Blumhouse shelled out $400 million for the franchise. And so Tony does give a little bit of important information here. It says right here, not even the devil himself could help Universal and Blumhouse this weekend. Oh boy, you had to go there, didn't you? Didn't you, Tony? Yeah, no thank you. I have no interest in seeing this movie or in, entertaining any of those ideas or thoughts, which is why I stay away from films like that. That's after the studio bought the franchise rights for a trilogy from Morgan Creek back in July of 2021 for $400 million. And so obviously that's going to be worth a lot more in the dollars of today's market. Even though this is the best opening for an Exorcist movie with 27.2 stateside, 45.1 million global, heads are low over at Universal City because, again, of the fact that even though it cost $30 million to produce, they spent $400 million. Now, it is something that I do find interesting because David Gordon Green is the person that really destroyed the Halloween franchise. I mean, he had this rebooted trilogy of the Halloween films, and the last film especially was just complete garbage. And so it's just kind of weird that they are continuing to go on with this guy. Maybe because of the low opening, we'll finally start to see them kind of push themselves away from him, and maybe they'll scrap it all together. Again, they spent $40 million, and so I guess the big question is, do they think honestly that they're going to get that much money or close to that much money back, return on investment, if they go ahead and produce the following films? It's not that they're spending all that much more. Again, $30 million for a production budget is not nearly that high. or not nearly too high. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see exactly where those things fall ultimately by the end of the day. We'll go ahead and pull up the numbers right now just so we can see the actual weekend numbers. We actually are starting to get some Monday numbers in here because, of course, this is one of the later times that I am recording this, but for good reason. But for the opening weekend of Exorcist, as you can see right here, the actual adjustment brings that a little bit lower than expected. So originally, it was looking around $27.2 million. That has been adjusted to be lower. And again, that's what happens when you have the projections, the estimates versus the actuals. $26.4 million is what the film actually made, and so it's still up there as far as that $27 million, but it's lower than what had been expected. So definitely not looking great for that film. When you compare it to the $400 million spent by the studio, not so much compared to the budget of the film. The budget of the film right now is getting very close to being passed. It will be profitable as an individual film based on how much they spent on it, but this is definitely a lot lower than what Universal would hope it to be, obviously because they were thinking, woo, we can make a ton of money releasing this film in October, getting some of that spooky vibes, all that kind of stuff. Apparently, though, not doing all that much. Even though the trailer I did think was quite effective, it was terrifying. I did not like it. I had to turn my head away because I'm like, nope, no thank you. I don't entertain that kind of stuff. Apparently, though, it was not able to drive a lot of people out, and I've heard some pretty bad things as far as the people that have talked about the movie. So, yeah, let's just say probably not going to be getting the fans of the franchise in the same way they were able to for the films like Halloween, and other franchises that have also gone in a similar direction, similar route. There just does not seem to be as, I guess, established of a fan base for the Exorcist movies, because I know that there's been subsequent, Exorcist movies since the original, but for me, as someone who's only ever seen the original movie, I heard about this movie and I thought, oh, is this just like kind of like a continuation of that story? It looks like it is. You're bringing the mom from the original film back, but I have no real knowledge or interest in the subsequent films that came out after the fact, and so I imagine that there is got to be some fan base because they were able to make at least a few of those movies, but I digress. The number 2 film is Paw Patrol movie, making $11.3 million, only dropping 50% from its opening weekend. So this actually had a pretty good opening. While I was out, this film ended up opening up to, again, a pretty decent amount of money domestically, internationally. So this film is edging closer and closer to $100 million. Film did not cost all that much to make, and so this film absolutely is on that profitability train. Again, a 50% drop, not a terrible drop for the kind of movie that it is. Coming in the number 3 spot is Saw 10, another similar film right there. We see that $7.8 million, a 57% drop. I'm kind of amazed that the Saw franchise is still around at this point, but for a second weekend drop, it's not the worst. And bigger and more important is that the budget for the film is not that high, and so this film also is moving towards profitability as well. And so those are the good news items, we could say, as far as the box office is concerned, but it's just those 2 movies specifically. It then starts to get kind of bad. So we have The Creator. This is a film I'm actually planning to see if, unless anything happens with Lady Sif, with Baby Sif, then obviously, hoping nothing comes up. But if nothing comes up, I'm going to see this film later today. So I might have a review up for this movie later on. Maybe add to the theater review, because sitting down to have time to dedicate to videos these days, it can be a lot harder. But I will have a review up at some point, either there or on my critic list. So if you have not followed me on critic list yet, please make sure you do so, because I'm loving that site still. But The Creator, 20th Century Fox, again, 20th Century Studios, so this is obviously Disney, $6.2 million, a 56% drop. Again, percentage-wise, not awful, but it had a very low opening, and so this movie at $25 million after 2 weeks domestically is not looking like it's going to make its money back. The film only cost $80 million, which I say only, that's still quite a bit of money, but apparently people who have seen it have said the visual effects make it look like a movie that should have cost a lot more, and so it's very much a triumph of cinema, as it were, in that specific reality, specifically when it comes to visual effects. However, it still doesn't change the fact that that's still enough money to where you need to make quite a bit, right? You're talking here at about an $80 million budget, you're talking about making close to needing to make close to $200 million to break even. And it's just not looking like that's going to be happening for this movie. So very sad to see that. There's a Fathom event called The Blind. I think this is one of those faith-based movies. And so this film is actually doing quite well compared to what the film cost and also the kind of movie release that it actually is. So I will give kudos there. Haunting in Venice is just not really doing much of anything. The Nun 2. This film has been out for 5 weeks, continuing to add to its money. Dumb Money is a film I hope to be able to see, if not this week, maybe next week, depending on how things go. This is a movie that I've been very excited to see because I love Paul freaking Dano, and it's been doing okay, again, for the kind of movie that it is. $10.6 million for a, I guess you could argue, independent type movie. It's not the worst. However, the film costs in that $30 to $40 million range, and so it's going to do a lot more than that. So this film also looking like it'll be a potential box office bust. Equalizer 3 is essentially starting to leave theaters after 6 weeks of release, and Hocus Pocus has been out for its, 30th anniversary edition, I believe. All the while you have Expen4bles after 3 weeks just completely annihilated. Just Lionsgate is abandoning this movie 3 weeks on, and it dropped it from 1,700 screens. Not looking good at all. Going to the box office chart, because we love doing charting here over at OMB Reviews. As you can see, $30 million budget for The Exorcist. But again, caveat, $400 million is what they actually spent to get the rights to the actual movie itself, not counting that budget. So the movie, the break-even point for the individual film is $75 million, but again, $43.8 million means right now $18.7 million in the red. I imagine based on the numbers we're seeing, though, we'll probably see this film get pretty close to break-even, but the fact that the film is only going to get close to breaking even and maybe make a little bit of profit in the grand scheme of how much they spent is just not a good look, and let's just say Universal not in a good spot when it comes to this film or this franchise. With the Paw Patrol movie now in its second week of release, the film needed to make around $75 million to break even. It's at 86.6, and it's going to continue to add to its overall profits as the days go by, and looking to probably end somewhere around $30 to $60 million in net gain profits. If you want to go ahead and look to exactly where this film is going to stand in the long run in its total box office, based on typical historical standards, $87 million after 2 weeks means we'll probably see the film get to 124 to 174 million by the end of its run. And again, it's looking like it's doing pretty well with that family audience, so kudos to them. When it comes to Saw 10, again, also because it did not cost all that much to make, again, it cost just a paltry $13 million, meaning it only needed to make 32.5. So at 43.5 right now, it's around 6.6 million. So seeing similar profits as Paw Patrol, and in the long term, expected to be somewhere between 18 and $33 million. So even though it costs a lot less than Paw Patrol, a lot more people going to see Paw Patrol versus Saw 10. Obviously, there is a base out there that exists. There is clearly a fan base that exists out there for this franchise, as the fact that they are still able to make some profits, but again, not really something that's my cup of tea. Now, this is the really sad thing, right? The creator, this is a film I am going to see later, so I can't speak to it personally yet, but I have had enough people. Critical Drinker, I know, was a pretty big fan of it. He had some criticisms, of course, but overall, he thought it was pretty good, especially what they were able to do with the money. But even though it only cost $80 million, you're still looking at around $200 million, break-even point. And because it's only made $61.9 million, that means it's looking to lose likely $67 to $45 million. Again, obviously 67 on the high end, 45 million on the low end as far as total losses are concerned. And we see a similar situation going on also with Dumb Money, costing a lot less, costing only around $30 million, but only expected to make, again, around, right, at least at this point, needing to make $75 million and only $12 million worldwide, looking to lose somewhere between $30 and $34 million. So again, this is what we are looking at when it comes to the box office, is the vast majority of movies are just not being able to make their money back, and these budgets are just a little bit out of control. Even the lower budgeted films, right? For a film like Dumb Money, you think about what the story is that's being told, and I think to that as that movie should have been able to be made for 10 to 15 million, not just 30. But until they're able to kind of, learn and able to figure out exactly how they should be spending their money, this is the kind of stuff that we can ultimately expect to see. A little bit of an update on some of the other films. So Expen4bles also is still $100 million in the red, and because it's being abandoned, this film will absolutely end as a $100+ million flop. And I don't quite understand why they were making the movie. I've heard some people say it was fun, turn off your brain stuff, but again, you need to have a little bit more there in order to get me going out to see that. Haunting of Venice continuing also to just not do much of anything. $30 million in the red. Probably not going to see anything turn around there. Nun 2 is at $91 million in the black, so very good profits for that film. My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 is actually, doing okay, but still not really doing much of anything. So is it going to break even? Not looking like it, but hey, you never know. Equalizer 3, this film is starting to be released onto physical media pretty soon. I think it's already available on streaming, at least on PVOD services. And so this is a film where you could potentially see it hit its break even. Obviously, though, still going to be one of the lowest grossing of the franchise, though I think it is still pretty good. Gran Turismo, also $19 million in the red as at this point. Not likely to get that back. And so unfortunately will be a loss. But hey, it's looking a lot better than what it was when it was first coming out. So definitely a film that did a little bit better down the line, but still not well enough. Blue Beetle, still a $100 million flop. Strays, this is actually a film I just saw last night. It's so much better than it has any right to be. A shout out to, I think it was Universal that was able to send me a review copy of that. So much better than what it had any right to actually be. It's kind of very actually surprising, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying that it's a good movie. However, what I am saying is that there are chuckles to be had in this film. and it is a darn good time. So I don't know if I'll do a dedicated review for it. I did put my review over on my Critic List account. Let me just see. Yeah, Universal. So I can shout out to them for sending me a copy of the film to be able to review. And yeah, again, I think that it is a darn good time. And if you like dogs especially, there's some good stuff in there. But that really is kind of the bulk of the box office. And if you want to find out more updates and track these numbers, check out my website, ombreviews.com, and you'll be able to find this chart. I try to keep it up to date as often as I possibly can. And just a little bit of update as far as streaming schedule is concerned. So I was talking with my wife, the lady Freya, and so what I've decided to do is once I do come back, probably next week to streaming, is we're going to be cutting down the stream to once a week. And so I'll be streaming every Tuesday, and it'll also be a little later. So it'll be every Tuesday from 7:30 to 9 Eastern. And I'll make sure to update my website and post this on the socials as well. But right now, that's kind of where we're looking for total streaming, just because I do want to open up my Saturdays to be able to spend more time with family. And obviously with having now 2 kids in the house, it's just going to be something that is just, again, a little bit more sensible. So over time, hey, who knows, maybe in months or years, I might be able to start to expand that out a bit more. Obviously the summertime is going to be able to open up those morning streams. But as far as now, during my work schedule, and during the regular time of the year, looking at just doing the one evening stream, 7:30 to 9 on Tuesdays. And that is, again, kind of where we're standing at right now. And I will keep y'all up to date if anything else changes. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about this and anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up the fire button, smash the rebel button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. I will be updating the shout outs as soon as I possibly can. I think the verbal shout outs I'm going to have to keep from the September shout outs. I don't think anyone changed. I'll make sure to double check that. But just keep in mind that that might be why things are still a little hectic here. And so glad I was able to sit down and actually dedicate time to a box office breakdown. It's been a long time, and it's good to be back. So anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members: Father Luca Illich, Laura, the Mother Major General's Story, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel by the name Eagle Rider, Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel by the same name. Also to Matt317, check out his Twitch channel of the same name. Mr. Roy and ZK-Man, check him out over at xtheboundaries.co. Thank you very much for being my chosen members this month. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, also access to a podcast, access to a giveaways channel, and tons of other stuff, go check out to be a member today in the links in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.